Heading over to the Vikings now. Look, we're talking Vikings. We have got to start with the man, the myth, the legend, Justin Jefferson. Another incredible fantasy season, Tom. Is he now in the space where we need to be talking about him as the 101 in drafts next year?
I mean, absolutely. He was somebody that I was willing to take as the 101 in best ball this season, particularly when we started hearing those whispers about Matthew Stafford's elbow. And it was like, well, okay, that just drops Cooper Kupp down beneath him. And I think he's absolutely somebody I'd be willing to take there. Christian McCaffrey's going to be a year older. We don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. Austin Eckler is getting older. Justin Jefferson just seems to be the clear favorite for it. I mean, he had 10 games of over 100 receiving yards this year, 9 top 5 weeks. He had over like 20 points more than the nearest wide receiver. He was just incredible. It's really one of those seasons for the ages, and I'll be all over him this year. He's somebody I'd take anytime I can take him in the top 3-4 picks next year.
Yeah, it's got to a point where I think in Dynasty he's basically unobtainable. I've certainly not seen him moved recently, and I don't think he's someone that you can go out and acquire. His wide receiver room teammate Adam Thielen, potentially a free agent at the end of the year. Do you think that they will keep him? Do you think they'll let him go? Do you think that could potentially be a good thing for Justin Jefferson?
I think he's somebody who could definitely be moved on. I mean, he's been a good player for the Vikings, but this coaching staff, they've not been there a long time. They've only been there a year. They're not as tied to Thielen as they could be. Thielen's coming off career lows in yards per reception. And I think when you look at somebody like KJ Osborne, who they've wanted to get more playing time, he had 573 yards, 5 touchdowns, which was as many as Adam Thielen had this year. So it feels like Osborne's ready to step into that wide receiver 2 role, and particularly if they're going to pay TJ Hawkinson, who they gave up draft capital to trade for, and they need to pay him, then it's probably that kind of thing where you're just shuffling the decks and Adam Thielen ends up being left out.
Yeah, obviously, you touched on TJ Hawkinson, finished tight end 2 in points per game this year. He broke into that kind of, let's call it second tier, because Travis Kelce's in his tier of his own, but second tier of tight ends. Do you think he can repeat that? Do you think this is a little bit more of a flash in the pan? And are you going to be taking him in drafts around that Mark Andrews, potentially Kyle Pitts range?
I don't think he'll get to that range. I think we've seen enough from George Kittle down the stretch, and people will tell themselves, okay, well, Mark Andrews was only bad because Lamar wasn't there for the end of the season. And people might even talk themselves into Kyle Pitts again. There'll also be Dallas Goedert in that conversation. But Hawkinson is absolutely somebody I'll be drafting next year. From the time when he was traded, he tied Travis Kelce with 85 targets in that time. That's 9.4 per game. No other tight end had more than 51 targets in that spell. So that's kind of usage that even if a player's not as talented as the likes of Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce, on that kind of production, we can definitely be very good in fantasy.
Yeah, and then finishing off with the running back position, Alex Mattison is a free agent at the end of the year. Dalvin Cook, slight downturn in terms of his production this year. Do you feel like the wheels are starting to come off and maybe we're going to see someone fresh brought into this offense at the running back position, or do you think we can trust Dalvin Cook again next year?
It's a bit of a funny one because it definitely feels like the wheels are starting to come off. But this is the first time in his career he's played every game, so he's been healthy. But his yards per attempt dropped to a career low 4.4. A lot of talk that he'd see more wide receiver work, and he saw 39 targets, which is right around his career average. Over the last 2 years, he's combined for 16 touchdowns, but back in 2020, when he had one of his best seasons, he had 17 that year. This is a front office that's analytically driven, and it might just be that they're ready to move on from an expensive running back and draft somebody this year.